I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 10. Now, last episode, I built this mega ore generator, and it's going to be producing us ores for just about everything, including modern industrialization, which is quite huge, considering that most of the ores from those mods are kind of held back and, well, restricted to you actually using the quarries from, well, modern industrialization. Now, I still have a ton of work to do on this room. This is where I'm going to house most of those things. But today, we're actually going to be letting this thing just sort of generate some ores. And today, we're going to work on getting ourselves the SPS set up so that way we can take all of the stuff that we've done so far from Mekanism and actually put it to use. But I do want to show you kind of what I'm working on in this room, because there is a lot still going on. I essentially have multi-floors that are 7x7s that do have a 3 wide gap in between each of them. And this is a 33x33 starting from this corner all the way over to this corner, right? 33x33, just in case you were wanting some dimensions. Now, I plan on using P2P to essentially send more channels over into each of these areas. And this is going to be important, especially when we get into more advanced machines that are going to be requiring a lot of exports and importers to kind of get things done. And I'll be dabbling in some of those things very, very soon. And I hope you guys are looking forward to it, as this is going to be sort of my second time diving into the modern industrialization mod. And last time I did it, I was very, very new to it, but now that I have a bit more of an understanding of how a lot of these machines work, I'm hoping to make the videos a whole lot smoother to show off how everything is sort of formed together, and at least how my ideas come together to get things done. But man, I cannot wait to see the cables, because I want Applied Energistics cables to run through here. Then I want them to flow through these tubes that I've created. So I'm going to have cable tubes that kind of look like they're anchored into the walls. I don't know, this whole area I have a lot of ideas for, and I hope you guys are excited to see them come true. And especially since we now have this giant, beautiful centerpiece that unfortunately I cannot run brake particles on anymore because it lags too much. But, you know, that's besides the point. Now today I'm going to be jumping back into our tech area, because this is where we need to get the SPS set up, and it's where we need to start producing the good old beloved antimatter. And as of right now, I've technically shut off my fusion reactor, and I've also shut off, well, our turbine that was producing a little bit of power for us. Nothing, though, compared to the power that beast over there, the fusion reactor, is generating. And hopefully you didn't miss that episode, because we are generating with that machine that you see over there 80 million FE per tick. And today we're going to be using some of that to essentially convert a little bit of the waste that we've been using to create the polonium and plutonium, and we are going to use that instead to convert nuclear waste into antimatter. Now, this is going to be pretty simple, especially considering how much polonium and plutonium we have. We should be able to easily craft ourselves an SPS, and it is going to require both of those byproducts. And so in the creation of this, we're going to need 60 base SPS casings, and it looks like we're going to need 3 ports. And the reason we need 3 ports is because we need one to basically attach a charge coil to send it power. And then the other 2, we're going to have an input and an output. Input for waste and output for our actual antimatter. Now, to get started building this thing, it is a 7x7. So I do want to go ahead and make the glass a 5x5 on the interior side. And then I can go ahead and start by putting an SPS casing on the outside, just like so. And I find this to be the easiest way to start building this. Same on the other side, and I'll get that placed in just like this. And now that I have my cross in place, well, we need to fill this in. And I am using structural glass for this. According to everything that I've seen, structural glass can be used. And I also believe that reactor glass can also be used as well. But here we go. This will be a nice clear indicator. And you can see now I've expanded my cross, and we have it going in a 3x5 in this direction, and then a 3x5 going in the opposite direction. Then I just need to surround the outside just like so with our SPS casings. And this pattern is going to repeat all the way through all of this on all sides of the machine. And just to show that as an example, I will be building this out, and remember 5, and we're going to go by 3 wide and 5 tall. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and fill that in. And then from the middle of this has to also go out 5. So there's 5, and it's going to be 3 wide. So we can expand that out. And that glass really makes this hard to see, but whenever I put the casing on the outside, then you'll really start to see the whole shape really coming together. And voila. Now, while I'm building this, I always have to remind myself that this is not always a tutorial. I try to kind of integrate tutorial style videos and also a Let's Play. And so I do need this for the All the Mods Star. So it's not like I'm putting this together just because. No. Inside of our quest here, we are going to see that we are going to require antimatter pellets in order to complete this. So I am going to have to get this started. And this is a very long process. So the sooner that I set this up, the longer it will have to run, which means the more antimatter we'll have to produce. Or sorry, I should say the more antimatter that will be produced. Now I wonder, does this autocomplete without even having any of the ports connected to it? I don't know if it does. Actually, I don't have all of this filled in yet. It is really satisfying, by the way, like filling in the corners of the block like this. And it looks like this is the last side. And nope, this one's the last side. There we go. And it does complete. So yes, even without having any of the reactor ports, it will complete, which is good to know that the structural glass does work in this this case. Now, I like the top here to be where I insert power because I think it looks really cool. And then I want the middle back here to be where we are basically sending in the waste. So we can send that in here. We can send the power in here. And now if I do define the power in here, notice I am trapped inside of here, and I almost certainly don't have my confined space certificate. I should not be in here. But there we go. I'm going to place in my supercharged coil on the input that is going to be receiving power. Now, typically, I like the front to be where I get antimatter, but you know what? This time, I think the bottom might be a very fitting place to have antimatter be produced and be sent. And I kind of want to build a structure looking like it's holding this up. And you know what? This actually seems really, really cool. All right, I got the structure finished on the bottom. I'm just using some lights to make it nice and illuminated looking. But I think this is going to work out perfect. Now, here is the big issue that we have to solve. How do I regulate the amount of power that is going to be going into this? Because all of the power that I have in my system, I could send to this. And you know what it'll do with it? It'll completely void it all. If it is not actively converting the polonium, I believe, into antimatter, if you do not actively control the rate, it will just go ahead and trash it all. So how exactly am I going to control the rate that is going in here? Well, I could actually limit this by just simply using one of our channels that we haven't used yet that is connected into our main network, and we can use our gates to control this. And I think this will be a pretty cool idea, right? We can go ahead and put this gate on here and select our 4th channel, and our 4th channel here means that we're only going to be allowed to send 1 million into this. And I think that is going to be pretty interesting, right? So the way I'm controlling this is, if you remember a few episodes ago, I showed that we could use things like our flux accessor and applied flux to send into different cells that are all on different channels. And this will give us some buffers, essentially. Now, what I could do is, if I wanted 2 million, which is technically what I want, I can go ahead and place down another ender cell and set it to channel 4. Then I will have a throughput rate that will be limited by the cell itself, meaning that we'll have a 2 million FE input rate limit. I think that would be actually pretty decent, because hear me out. I'm only going to be generating about 160 millibucket burn rate on our fission reactor, which is not that much, honestly. And we're not going to need a whole lot of power. The goal here is to get it set up and just let it run. So let's try this out. I'm going to place this cell down and I'm going to select channel 4. And this will mean I have way more throughput than this little gate. The gates are kind of limited. They're like half of what this cell can do. So I'll just put the cell in there. It's locked to channel 4, and we could technically set the down face to extract. I think extract is fine, meaning that this is pushing power technically into here. And as of right now, I don't think there's anything going into it. I should be able to go in here, I think. If I go into the multi-block, we can see this does have power, right? So the supercharged coil is not going to run just yet. We don't have any material in for it to burn. Now the input's fine on this, the input's fine on the back here, but the bottom, we do want to pop down in here, and we probably want to get our other stuff set up. This needs to be set to an output, and I'm going to have the machine right here that is essentially going to be producing our antimatter. Now, I'm not going to worry about that just yet, because honestly, that part is not as scary as everything else we're about to be working on. Because now we've got to get our waste pipe sent from our reactor all the way to this. And thankfully I didn't make it that far away. And they're kind of lined up perfectly. All I've got to do is go down and know how many blocks down I went, and also not touch these pipes. So I'm just down 2 blocks, and I'm going to be going all the way over here from the back of this, which is in the exact same position. So I strategically placed this in this exact location for this very reason. Now, I don't want to hook the waste directly to this, because first we actually have to turn it into polonium. So to do that, we need a solar neutron activator. And you know what? I'm going to place these just like this. I'm going to get the skybox cleared. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the waste pipe run up into the back here, and it's going to split into both of these solar neutron activators. So now for the fun of placing in my cables, just like this. And I'm almost positive I could use the building gadget, but you know what? There's just something satisfying about hand placing cables. Oh, and by the way, I don't think that I technically need 2 solar neutron activators, but I do have them here just in case. I really think 1 would probably be fine for the amount of burn rate that I'm going to be handling. I do, however, have to dig some holes into the ceiling. I mean, now we're almost there. And so all I have to do is get my cables placed in, coming right out of the front of these activators, which, by the way, they do send directly to the front by default, and just run that into the input port. I think, though, at this point, we are almost there, because the only thing left to do is to make sure these machines are shut off. So I just need to flip them into it from ignored into, I believe, inverted. I'll have to turn this on to actually see, but the goal is to turn this on. We have enough buffer in the pipes. I'm not worried about anything backing up. We just want to make sure that this is no longer processing anything. This is still on, so we want to make sure to shut this off. This will fill up with waste when it is the appropriate mode. There we go. This is filled up with waste. Now that this is filled up with waste, there should be only one other place for it to go, and that is over here. So once it starts going in, oh goodness, there we go. We now have polonium coming in and slowly producing antimatter. And I believe rates were changed for this, by the way. But my God, that is a beautiful sight to see. And so yes, it should be a lot more viable making antimatter than normal, considering all of the config change. Because normally we wouldn't see a millibucket rate increase like this off of a rate that I am currently sending. I mean, this is actually really fast, considering. Now, before I get carried away, I'm going to shut this off just to kind of help with the sound of things. But this is how things are going to be running. Now, what I want to do, though, is I want to take the antimatter that we have here, and I want to put this to use. And so to do this, I'm going to use a chemical crystallizer, and we just need to take a regular chemical pipe, so a tube, not a pipe, and we will route this. I think, yeah, I have it right here. So I'll just send directly from here into the back, and the antimatter is automatically in there. Nothing we have to really change. And then we give this some power with a gate on the bottom, and it doesn't even need that much power. Just go down here, slap on the gate to make sure it has power, and voila, we now have this setup ready to produce antimatter. And it is going to end up in this slot right here. And I shouldn't really have to worry about extending this machine. This thing does produce really slow. And honestly, yeah, we should be more than fine. Even if our whole setup backed up and we had a waste backed up, what it would end up doing is triggering our redstone solution up here, and this would just shut the machine down. That's as simple as I can explain it. So perfect. Now with this turned on, we are more than easily destroying, and you can see the amount of power sending, 2 million. We're more than enough able to break down all of that polonium into antimatter. That is so cool to be able to actually watch the numbers increase this fast. And it looks like we're producing about 1 millibucket every 2 seconds. And that may not seem like a very fast, quote unquote, fast number, but it is relatively quick, especially when you consider all of the other tasks that we still have to work on before we complete the star. We're going to have more than enough antimatter pellets built up inside of this thing, and this will produce one antimatter pellet when this reaches 1,000 millibuckets. So perfect. We now have antimatter in production, which is going to be super helpful for getting all the mod star, but also if I want to use it in some of the upgrades for the mech suit and other materials, which I don't know if those have been changed, but I do know that antimatter was used in the gravitational unit, which I think has been modified in this particular pack. But now that we have that done, we can kind of use this little free time that we have towards the end of the video to kind of show off how P2Ps kind of work, or just show you what I plan on using them for. Now, I'm really hoping that I can explain P2Ps without scaring you away. And I know that this does scare a lot of people, and they're like, oh man, that just seems really advanced. But I promise you, it's not advanced at all. And once you understand how simple they are, you'll be like, why have I never used these? Now, to demonstrate how the point-to-points work, I really love using the redstone to show this off. It's essentially a wormhole. It's a portal that utilizes all of the cables that you have inside of your applied energetics system as a means of transferring information straight through it into another location. Sounds really complicated, but if I go ahead and convert these, which by the way, to be able to convert them to a different kind, you can use, for example, like a torch in this case on them. This converts this into a redstone P2P tunnel. So now these are not connected. What we need to do to connect these is we go to applied and we just use a card to simply link information from one to another. And that card is called a memory card. So we just craft ourselves a memory card, and I shift right click, and it's cool to do this from the back so we can see it change. I shift right click on here, and that is going to assign a frequency to this P2P, and it also copies it to this card. And then I can just go over here and just right click on this one, and it will take that information from that point and it will assign it to this one. So now these are both linked to each other. And what's kind of interesting is they both almost kind of exist in the same space. It's almost like an entangled block, basically. Now, I love to use redstone for this, so that way I can demonstrate that fact of it sort of being like an entangled block. Of course, if you've never used an entangled block, this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but let's just assume they both exist in the same space. And to be able to demonstrate that, if we take a look at a lever, it emits a signal of 15, and then it goes to 14 as it degrades on, and then it'll go to 13, and then it'll go to a level of 12. And to show that this is simply a wormhole, if I put a redstone signal here and here, these are linked together. So that means that this redstone signal is affecting this block, and then it's going to output that same effect out here immediately, meaning that this redstone power should be the same as this redstone power on the other side. And to be able to demonstrate that, I can put a torch down. This has a level of 15, and this over here also now has a level of 15, because they essentially are just going straight through as if they were in the same space. And so for a interesting little look into how this works, you can actually look at the guide here, and this giant block right here and here is the representation of a P2P. And you can see this is the illustration here where we have a cable that is running through. This is providing the one channel required for the P here and the other channel required here using two channels. And then on the out face, essentially it's connected to a controller, sending 32 channels through. And then on the outside, it is sending 32 channels as if it was a portal. And you can see that representation of the portal in this little image right here. Now, there are a ton of different P2Ps that you can use. There's items, there's redstone. Yeah, you can send items through here, which is kind of cool. You can send fluids, energy. There's all kinds of stuff. Yes, energy is a thing you can use. Chemicals, because we have applied mechanistics. You can send source through a P2P tunnel. Pretty cool, because you can also shoot a spell through the source P2P tunnel, and the spell will shoot out the other side that it is linked to, as if there was a portal in between them. That's another really cool example. And then you have the spell. The spell P2P is the one that will send through. The source will allow you to send source to here to then send out somewhere else. But yeah, the spell is pretty cool because it's like an instant transfer of a spell. And then we have an EU P2P, which allows us to transfer the industrial modernization power through the AE and have it act as a portal. Just some really cool examples. So now just to demonstrate how this can be used, because I want to use it mainly for channels. If I go down to the under tech area, and you had seen I have them setting up right here, essentially what I want to use is I want to use the 32 channels that we're receiving from this wireless connector, and I want to use those to power these tunnels. Each one of them is going to cost 1 channel. So that means on this one line here, this is going to be using 4 channels. And you can see in total here, we're using 16 out of a total of 32 because I have 16 P2Ps. Now, here is where the kind of confusing part can start to happen. I need to tell these what they are connected to back over on the controller side of things. And so an easy way to do that is just to simply slap them onto the face of a controller. So I can go ahead and go boop, 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 just like that, and they're connected. And then to give these a channel, I can have them just simply pull off of an actual side of the controller. And these are using technically 3 channels right here. And they're accessing, though, the 32 channels, providing that directly through the other side. And then to link, just like we did before, we will just basically hold down Shift, and I will go ahead and define this one right here, and it created a new frequency ID. And then I just need to go to one of those others and just right-click it. And so I'm going to be going back and forth, but I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm probably going to jump back to using my portal gun from Just Dire Things to make this easier. And so I can go back and forth. So like I said, I can right click on here. This is now assigned to that frequency. I'll go back again, and then I'll just shift right click on this one. That one is now linked. And then I can just continue rotating. And just like that, I will end up having a new set of 32 channel access that is essentially a gateway directly to a face of the controller, allowing me to send dense cables out through a bundle, and then we can just spread our channels out willy-nilly. So now that I have all of them assigned, the fun part gets to happen, right? Where I start to lay out cables. And remember earlier, I was like, ah, man, cables is such an enjoyable thing. You know, I would play a game if it literally just consisted of placing cables down, because I don't know what it is about my monkey brain that really loves the placing cable thing. I don't know. I could do this all day long. I mean, it's almost like I should have focused my career path on like network engineering or something like that. Oh, wait. No, but in all seriousness, I do love stuff like this. And so here we go. I am lining this out, and I'm going to go cyan here, and I'm going to go orange on this side. Who would have guessed? Okay, so I've got the cable bundles in, but I thought they looked kind of lacking with just being, you know, the plain Jane cables. So I was like, maybe I could put something in the middle. And insert the Luminex blocks, the white blocks here. Oh, this looks really good. Like having that white in the cable bundle. I don't know. There's just something futuristic feeling about that. And I'm really liking this vibe that I'm going with, where it's futuristic, but also like rusty metal. I don't know. It looks kind of cool. And I don't know. That's kind of the theme that I'm going with for this. There's still a lot of work to be done in this area. And I know today's main point of today's video, of course, was to get Antimatter up and running, in which I did. But yeah, I don't know. This is still a huge step forward for our room in here, where we're going to have a lot of space, right, for getting the modern industrialization up and running. And I know that does sound scary, the modern industrialization, and I know that a lot of people probably are not too excited to watch this, just judging by the last time I played it and played around with that mod. The interest in the videos very much so dipped off. So I am going to try a different approach this time to how I go about explaining the modern industrialization. I think there are possibly better ways of showcasing things instead of, you know, trying to go over every minute detail over and over again. And you know what? That is kind of an unfortunate part about that mod and many other mods like GregTech and so on and so forth, is things do become very repetitive. Once you upgrade to the next tier of machines, you're going to end up in the same boat, right? Where the next tier of machines, you're basically doing the same tasks again, and then you go into the next tier and the next tier, and it's just like repeating the same tasks over and over again. But something cool to note, apparently we have integration with just simply slapping a gate onto the electric machines and they'll hopefully just work and use FE power. That's going to be really nice. And on top of that, we have tick acceleration from Industrial Foregoing Souls and the ability to move that around in our base, making it a lot easier to accelerate certain machines. And then also we have access to a ton of the ores. I think making some of the progression flow a lot smoother simply because of this massive block here that I set up last episode that's generating all of the ores for it. Now, if I want to complete this pack, I do have to get through all of the stuff required of me that is going to involve modern industrialization. So unlike all the mods 9 where we had an option at the end to do the Greg Tech related stuff, in this particular version, no, we are kind of forced to go through that Greg Tech style mod if we do want to get the end game stuff. And so, yeah, that's something that I definitely want to try to do. And just in case you were wondering, if you are a MI expert and you kind of are wondering like what is even required of it, if you haven't played with the pack so far, we need an advanced large motor. We're going to need blast proof casings, which are going to require like tungsten and titanium, and also stainless steel. And we're also going to have to get into the production of making the fuel rods, the uranium fuel rods from this mod, which from what I've heard is probably the most grueling part of the entire setup. I think this is going to be something that I work on over time. So it might be like I will do some industrial stuff and I'll get that set up. And then like a few episodes, we'll do some other things because we still have some other mods to definitely dive into here. Like, for example, occultism and a few others that I haven't really played around with. So there's going to be a lot of setups that I can still continue to work on and kind of let some of these passive things run, because that's kind of how MI works. You kind of set up your infrastructure and then you let it sort of passively run over time. And of course, with all of our speeding up of things, it's going to hopefully make things a little bit faster. And I'm hoping that with all of the integration, maybe with our power and stuff, it's going to make that transition a lot easier once we get out of the Steam era. So in that time, I started to work on what the kind of floor looks like in this area. I think this place is going to slowly but surely come together and is going to look better, if not better anyways, than the actual factory room that I have, the sewer area. I don't know, this is going to be kind of neat. I got some cables ready to be kind of placed in. We'll be able to tap into each of these with our wireless connectors. Got like a floor system that I plan on running through, so that way we can contain each individual setup. I think this is going to be very, very, very fun. And so if things like this is something you're interested in seeing in the future, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And of course, give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And also, if you would, comment down below. What's your thoughts on modern industrialization being the end game of the pack, and what has been some of your struggles if you have gone through that mod yourself in this playthrough, and what should I be worried about, right? Because there's still some late game things that I've never experienced before. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. And of course, with that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to none other than Dragon Republic. And of course, thank you so very much for supporting me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. Thank you all so very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And of course, as always, again, thanks for watching. Bye. Look at that, by the end of the video, 4 antimatter pellets already. That's awesome.